Sometimes the brightest stars burn the hottest, and sometimes they burn out the fastest. But what happens when a star learns to shine not just for the world, but for themselves? This is the story of Justin Bieber, a journey from the heights of fame to the depths of despair, and back to something even more powerful: authentic healing. Stratford, Ontario, 2007. A 12-year-old boy sits in front of a camera, his voice pure and untrained, singing covers of his favorite songs. His name is Justin Drew Bieber, and he has no idea that these innocent YouTube videos will change his life forever. But perhaps more importantly, he has no idea what that change will cost him. Justin's story begins not with privilege, but with struggle. Raised by his teenage mother, Patty Mallet, who became pregnant at 17, Justin grew up in low-income housing. His father, Jeremy Bieber, was largely absent during his early years, leaving Patty to raise Justin primarily on her own. The family faced financial hardship, moving frequently and relying on food banks and government assistance. "I just wanted to share my music," Justin would later recall about those early YouTube days. What started as a way for his mother to share his talent with distant relatives quickly became something much bigger. The videos gained traction, and suddenly, this small-town Canadian boy was being discovered by Scooter Braun, a music executive who would become his manager and, in many ways, a father figure. The meeting with Usher sealed the deal. Here was a superstar who saw something special in this kid from Ontario. The contracts were signed, the machine was set in motion, and 13-year-old Justin Bieber was about to become one of the biggest pop stars in the world. One Time dropped in 2009, and the world changed overnight for Justin. The success was immediate and overwhelming. Here was a teenager who went from busking on the streets of Stratford to performing for millions. But with that success came something no child should have to handle: the weight of the world's expectations. The statistics are staggering. By 15, Justin had sold over 15 million albums worldwide. Baby became one of the most watched videos in YouTube history. He was earning tens of millions of dollars, performing for presidents, and being followed by paparazzi everywhere he went. But behind the scenes, something was breaking. Fame is a drug, and Justin was overdosing. The pressure was relentless. Every move was scrutinized. Every mistake was front-page news. And for a teenager still figuring out who he was, the weight became unbearable. The first cracks appeared publicly in 2012. Paparazzi incidents, clashes with fans, and increasingly erratic behavior. But what the public saw was just the surface. Underneath, Justin was drowning. The boy who had once charmed the world with his innocence was becoming someone he didn't recognize. "I was distant from everyone," Justin would later admit. "I was really unhappy last year." That unhappiness manifested in ways that shocked his fans and worried his family. The DUI arrest in Miami in 2014 was a turning point, not because it was his first mistake, but because it was the first time the world saw how far he had fallen. But the legal troubles were just symptoms of a deeper problem. Justin was struggling with depression, anxiety, and what he would later identify as childhood trauma. The absent father, the financial instability of his early years, and the crushing pressure of fame had created a perfect storm of mental health challenges. The addiction began as so many do, as a way to cope. Prescription drugs to help with anxiety became a dependency. Alcohol became an escape. And as Justin spiraled deeper, he began pushing away everyone who tried to help him. His mother, his team, his friends, everyone became collateral damage in his personal war. "I felt like I had no one," Justin reflected years later. "I was just alone. I was making poor decisions, and I was hurting people." The boy who had once been grateful for every opportunity was now trapped in a prison of his own making, and he couldn't find the key. The Purpose World Tour in 2017 was meant to be a triumphant return. Instead, it became a breaking point. Midway through the tour, Justin canceled the remaining dates, citing his mental health. The official statement mentioned unforeseen circumstances, but the truth was simpler and more devastating. He was falling apart. The hospitalization wasn't just physical, it was emotional and spiritual. Justin was experiencing panic attacks, severe anxiety, and what he would later describe as a complete identity crisis. "I didn't know who I was," he admitted. "I was just this character that everyone expected me to be." Rock bottom became foundation. Sometimes we have to lose everything to find out what really matters. For Justin, that realization came in the form of a simple truth. He needed help, and he needed to stop running from it. The first step was admitting he had a problem. Not just with substances, but with trauma, with identity, with the fundamental question of who he was beneath the fame. This meant facing the pain he had been running from for years, the abandonment issues, the pressure, the loss of his childhood. Faith became a cornerstone of his recovery. Justin's relationship with Christianity deepened, not as a public relations move, but as a genuine search for meaning and redemption. He began attending Hillsong Church in Los Angeles, finding community and purpose in ways he had never experienced before. "I felt like I finally had a relationship with God," Justin explained. "It gave me hope. It gave me something to hold on to." This wasn't just about religion. It was about finding a foundation that wasn't built on fame or achievement, but on something deeper and more stable. But faith alone wasn't enough. Justin began working with therapists, confronting his childhood trauma, and learning healthy coping mechanisms. He started attending support groups, surrounding himself with people who understood addiction and recovery. The work was hard. Healing always is. It meant facing the parts of himself he had been hiding from, acknowledging the pain he had caused others, and taking responsibility for his actions. But slowly, day by day, Justin began to emerge from the darkness. In 2018, something beautiful happened. Justin reconnected with Hailey Baldwin, now Hailey Bieber, a friend from his earlier years. Their relationship represented more than just love. It represented Justin's ability to form healthy connections again. "She's been my best friend through this whole process," Justin said about Hailey. "She's seen me at my worst and still chooses to be with me every day." Their relationship wasn't built on the fantasy of celebrity romance, but on the reality of two people committed to growing together. Their wedding in 2019 was simple, intimate, and meaningful. It marked not just the beginning of their marriage, but a new chapter in Justin's life, one where he could be vulnerable, authentic, and truly loved for who he was, not what he had accomplished. "Marriage is hard," Justin openly admitted, "but it's taught me so much about myself and about love." The honesty was refreshing. Here was a celebrity couple talking about real challenges, real growth, and real commitment. Music had always been Justin's first language, but now it became his testimony. The 2020 album Changes was deeply personal, exploring themes of love, faith, and transformation. These weren't just songs, they were confessions, prayers, and promises. "I want people to hear my story," Justin said about the album. "I want them to know that change is possible, that healing is possible, even when it seems impossible." The music had evolved from the manufactured pop of his teenage years to something raw, authentic, and deeply moving. Songs like Lonely addressed his struggles with fame and isolation. Anyone explored his relationship with Hailey and his journey toward vulnerability. Each track was a piece of his healing, shared with the world that had watched him fall apart. But perhaps most importantly, Justin began using his platform to talk about mental health. He opened up about his struggles with depression, anxiety, and suicidal thoughts. In a world where celebrities often hide their pain, Justin chose radical honesty. "I struggled for a long time," he admitted in one interview. "I was in a really dark place, and I didn't think I would ever get out of it. But I want people to know that you can. You can get help. You can get better." His vulnerability became a source of strength for millions of fans facing their own struggles. Recovery isn't a destination, it's a journey, and Justin's journey continues every day. In 2021, he revealed his diagnosis with Lyme disease, explaining many of the health challenges he had faced. But rather than hiding from this new struggle, he faced it head-on. "I'm learning to be patient with myself," Justin shared. "I'm learning that healing isn't linear, and that's okay." The maturity in his words reflected years of growth, therapy, and hard work. Today, Justin Bieber is a different person than the one who first stepped onto the world's stage. He's a husband, a friend, a mentor to young artists, and an advocate for mental health awareness. But perhaps most importantly, he's someone who has learned to love himself. "I spent so many years hating myself," he reflected recently. "I thought I was worthless, that I had messed up too much to ever be truly happy. But I've learned that's not true. I've learned that I am worthy of love, of forgiveness, of grace." Justin's transformation has created ripples far beyond his own life. His openness about mental health has helped destigmatize therapy and depression, particularly among young men. His honesty about addiction has shown others that recovery is possible, even after very public failures. "He saved my life," one fan wrote. "Seeing him get better gave me hope that I could get better too." These aren't just words. They're testimonies to the power of authentic transformation and the courage it takes to share our struggles with the world. Justin has used his platform to support various causes, from mental health awareness to social justice. But his greatest contribution might be his example, showing that it's possible to fall publicly, struggle openly, and still find redemption. His relationship with his fans has evolved too. Where once it was based on fantasy and perfection, now it's built on authenticity and shared humanity. His concerts have become spaces of healing, where fans and artists alike can acknowledge their struggles and celebrate their growth. What can we learn from Justin Bieber's journey? First, that fame and success are not shields against pain. The brightest lights can cast the darkest shadows, and achievement without authentic self-worth is ultimately hollow. Second, that childhood trauma doesn't have to define us, but it must be acknowledged and healed. Justin's absent father, early financial struggles, and loss of childhood innocence all contributed to his later struggles. But through therapy and intentional healing, he learned to process these experiences in healthy ways. Third, that addiction is often a symptom of deeper pain. Justin's substance abuse wasn't just about poor choices. It was about a young man trying to cope with overwhelming circumstances in the only way he knew how. Understanding this helped him find real solutions, not just temporary fixes. Fourth, that healing requires community. Justin couldn't recover alone. He needed therapists, friends, spiritual advisors, and a partner who could support him through the process. Isolation had been part of his problem. Connection became part of his solution. And finally, that redemption is possible for anyone willing to do the work. Justin's story could have ended in tragedy, another young star destroyed by fame and addiction. Instead, it became a testament to the power of grace, both given and received. Justin Bieber's story isn't over. At 29, he's still growing, still learning, still becoming. He's no longer the perfect pop star his team once marketed, nor is he the troubled young man who made headlines for all the wrong reasons. He's something more valuable. He's real. His marriage to Hailey continues to grow stronger. His music continues to evolve. His platform continues to be a source of hope for those struggling with similar challenges. And his journey continues to remind us that our worst moments don't have to define our story. "I'm not perfect," Justin has said. "I'm not trying to be perfect anymore. I'm just trying to be authentic, to be real, to be the person God created me to be." This simple statement represents a profound shift from performing for approval to living for purpose. The boy who once sang for his mother's camera has become a man who sings for his own healing and the healing of others. The teenager who lost himself in fame has found himself in faith, love, and authentic community. The young man who once ran from his pain has learned to face it, process it, and use it to help others. Justin Bieber's transformation reminds us that no one is beyond redemption. No pain is too great to heal, and no story is over until it's over. His journey from broken to whole isn't just about one person's recovery. It's about the universal human capacity for growth, change, and renewal. In a world that often celebrates perfection and punishes vulnerability, Justin Bieber chose a different path. He chose honesty over image, healing over hiding, and authenticity over approval. And in doing so, he didn't just save his own life, he showed millions of others that they could save theirs too. Because that's the ultimate message of Justin Bieber's transformation. No matter how far you've fallen, no matter how much you've lost, no matter how broken you feel, your story isn't over either. Healing is possible. Growth is possible. Redemption is possible. And sometimes, the most beautiful stories are the ones about learning to love ourselves enough to change.
If this story inspired you, hit subscribe and turn on notifications because every week, we bring you real people who turned rock bottom into success.